Okay, let's start with a wild thought. What if everything you see around you, I mean everything, the space you're in, the time that's ticking by, what if it's all just an illusion? Today, we're diving into a really radical new theory that says our reality isn't the bedrock, it actually emerges from something way, way deeper. Let's get into it.
So, right out of the gate, we're going to challenge the most basic thing you think you know. We tend to think of our universe as the ultimate backdrop, the stage where all the action of physics takes place. But what if that's wrong? What if the universe isn't the stage at all? What if it's the performance itself, emerging moment by moment from some hidden, more fundamental reality?
And this, right here, this is the core of it all. On the left, you've got the view we all learn in school. Space-time is the fixed box, the container. But on the right, that's this new emergent view, the idea that space-time is the play, not the stage. It's a huge, huge shift in thinking. So where do we even start looking for clues that this might actually be, well, real?
All right, our first breadcrumb on this trail comes from the physicist Gunther Klatechka, and it involves a total rethink of time itself. He's proposing that our everyday experience of time, as this single line moving forward, is just a fraction of the real story.
Here it is. This is Klatechka's big idea in a nutshell. Space isn't fundamental. It's just a side effect, a geometric consequence of time, bending, and twisting. Let me try and break this down. Imagine you have a perfectly flat sheet of paper. That's 2 dimensions. Now, if you crinkle that paper up, a third dimension, height, suddenly appears, right? That height wasn't there before. It's just a consequence of the paper's new shape. Well, this theory suggests our 3 dimensions of space pop into existence in the exact same way, from the curvature of time.
So, how can time curve? Well, Klatechka's model says it's because there isn't just one dimension of time. There are 3. Think of them as 3 different clocks, all ticking away at once, but each one running a totally different scale of reality. You've got T1, that's the clock for the bizarre quantum world. Then there's T2, the clock for the fundamental forces that glue everything together. And finally, you have T3, the grand cosmic clock that dictates the expansion of the entire universe. 3 different levels of reality, 3 different kinds of time. And that, of course, leads to the next massive question, right? I mean, if Klatechka's right and space is just an illusion created by 3-dimensional time, that's incredible. But it just pushes the question back one level. Where do these 3 dimensions of time even come from? What's writing that source code? And this is where things get really interesting. Enter a framework from Alice and Hengen called Delta.72 Coherence Physics. If Klatechka's idea tells us what might be happening, Hengen's theory gives us the why. It proposes a fundamental generative engine that's creating not just space, but time itself. So what is this engine built on? At its very core is something called the Delta.72 Coherence field. The best way to think about this is like the raw clay before a sculptor even thinks about making a pot. It's the ultimate stuff of reality, and it exists before space and time. It's pre-geometric, which is just a fancy way of saying it doesn't live in dimensions, it makes them. And its only rule, its only motivation, is coherence, a deep, fundamental drive for things to be consistent and to make sense. And this little equation right here is supposed to be the engine that drives it all. It's proposed as the one meta-law that generates our entire universe. Now, I know, it looks like alphabet soup, but stick with me, because it's actually incredibly elegant when you break down what these letters mean.
The best way to get this is to imagine a storyteller writing a story. R, the reality trajectory. That's the story so far. Everything that's already happened in the universe. I, the imagination stream. That's every possible plot twist you could ever imagine, every single thing that could happen next. It's an infinite sea of potential. And A, the arbitration function? Well, that's the storyteller, the author, who looks at all those infinite possibilities and says, nope, that doesn't fit the story. That contradicts what happened before. Ah, this one. This is the one that's coherent. A is the process that selects what actually gets to become real.
Okay, so we have this engine, this storytelling machine. How in the world does that create a cosmos? Well, the theory says it happens in 4 layers, building up from the ground floor of reality. Let's see how it all stacks up.
All right, this is the whole shebang, from the bottom up. Let's walk through it. Layer 1. You start with that fundamental, dimensionless Delta.72 field, just this raw potential for coherence. As that field settles into stable patterns, it creates layer 2, these beautiful harmonic projections that we experience as the 3 dimensions of time, T1, T2, and T3. Then, just like Klitschko proposed, as these time axes interact and curve, they produce layer 3, the geometric surface that we call three-dimensional space. And finally, the consistent behaviors and stable rules that play out on that surface, that's layer 4, the laws of physics.
So, let this sink in for a second. What this model is saying is that the space you're moving through, the very laws of physics we build our science on, they aren't fundamental truths written in stone. They're coherence artifacts. They're just the most stable patterns that won out, the ripples that lasted the longest on a very deep pond.
Now, this all sounds like incredible sci-fi, right? A beautiful idea. But here's the kicker. It's not just philosophy. This framework actually makes specific, concrete predictions we could go look for in a lab.
Take this, for example. The theory says if you could somehow wobble that first time axis, T1, the one that runs the quantum world, you'd see very specific, measurable patterns in how quantum systems behave. It's a direct cause and effect, a testable link between a hidden dimension of time and something we can actually observe.
And it's the same for the next level up. The theory predicts that if there was some kind of misalignment in the T2 axis, the time that's in charge of forces, it would show up as instabilities in how those forces link together. Once again, it gives experimental physicists something real to hunt for. It's not just a story, it's a map.
And this is the real holy grail of it all, isn't it? The idea that one single simple principle, this drive for a coherent story, could be the meta-law that unifies everything. The structure of time, the shape of space, the rules of physics, even the flow of information itself, all of it bubbling up from one fundamental operator.
And that leaves us right here with one last absolutely mind-bending question. If this model holds any water, and our entire universe with all of its amazing complexity and beautiful laws is really just a stable projection, a story selected because it was the most coherent one possible, then where does that need for coherence come from in the first place?